Greetings of peace. My name is Ram Hotep, broadcasting on behalf of 13 Signs Astrology.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. On this particular episode, I'm going to speak about the Reptilians. It was over a year ago I did a video called The Real Illuminati is a Group of Shape-Shifting Reptilians. And in this particular segment, I want to really talk about the reptilians, and I'm going to talk about them from a scientific standpoint, not from a religious standpoint. It's been a lot of different metaphysical authors out there that have wrote about the reptilians, and they have wrote about the reptilians in a negative light. And even myself, I've spoke about the reptilians from a negative light. But in this particular episode and segment, I'm going to kind of bring balance to the topic by going into the history of the reptilians. And when you go into the history of a thing, it helps to even things out. It helps you to see the truth versus giving a biased opinion about a thing. Versus giving a prejudiced opinion about a thing, excuse me. So first thing I want to do is to help people to understand the reptilians is I want to kind of go into the history of how significant the reptilians are on this particular planet. When you start talking about the species of reptilians. Now, when you talk about reptilians, the first thing you want to realize is that there are reptilians in various different dimensions. When you talk about reptilians can exist all the way up to 6D when you deal with dimensions or whatever. And when you to really understand the concept of dimensions, you have to understand the concept of parallel realities. There are realities going on simultaneously while our reality is going on, and these other realities shape and mold our reality. When significant changes happen in other dimensions, they cause changes to happen in our reality. Very key here. There's basically, when you deal with realities, there's three different types of realities. I teach on a little bit of this in my classes. You have a primary reality, you have more of a secondary reality, and you have what's called a tertiary reality, or a third level to reality. Now us humans, this is different when you study densities and stuff like that. These are types of realities. So say for instance, when you looking at the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions, you're looking at primary reality. When you're looking at the 7th dimension on up, you're looking at stages of primary reality, going from 7 on up. When you go up under 7, you get to 6, you're looking at stages of secondary reality. And of course, when you get to 3D on down, so when you get from 6D to about 4D, this is secondary reality, from 6D to 4D. And then you have from 3D on down to 1D is basically what we would call tertiary reality, or this is where humans live at, the reality that us humans live in. So if you want to understand these different realities, you have to understand that there are different beings that come with each reality. So in primary reality, you have a group of primary beings that deal with mostly ether. And in secondary reality, you have beings that are physical, they're materialistic, and they're dealing with different types of atoms. Because you have exotic atoms, you have different types of atoms. The atom has changed even since the time the scientists have discovered it. The atom itself has changed. The atoms are evolving and changing all the time and revolving. So that's one level to it. And then on the third level of creation is where as humans live, you have what's called compound realities. And in a compound reality, these are species that are a mixture of many different beings. And this is what humans are. So you hear me say in my videos that we are a mixture of 24 different beings. We have 24 different beings inside of our makeup. So with that, we are a compound. Some people will call it a clone or whatever, but clones exist in tertiary reality, or third level of reality, or third creation is what we call it in the occult. It's called third creation. So you have first creation, second creation, and third creation. And this is where us humans live. Now, reptilians, even though, most people, they talk about the reptilians, and they talk about the reptilians like they're just a bunch of meat-eating savages, and they're stupid, and all they do is lust and like to have sex and control people, and they're power hungry and thirsty. And don't get me wrong, they are all of those things. They are all of those things. You do have reptilians that have different personalities, just like you got different humans that have different personalities. But I'm going to help you to understand the difference, the main difference between humans and reptilians, and the edge that they have over us. Very key here. But we can get an advantage over them, but I'm going to go into the edge that they have over us. Now, to really understand this, you want to understand how the reptilians got here. Now, the reptilians, there are reptilians on all different planets, all different dimensions. So there's reptilians in Sirius. Sirius exists on 5D and up. When you start talking about the Sirius star constellation, you're dealing with a 5D reality. So you're dealing with what's called a second creation on up to first creation in Sirius. So you have beings that are part of secondary creation and first creation on Sirius. And you have reptilians on Sirius. This is where the reptilian types evolved at and started at, on Sirius. And from Sirius, they went to Pleiades, and they went to Draconian star constellation. So you got reptilians living in all dimensions, on all different constellations or whatever. And that's what people fail to realize. You have reptilians living in all these different realities, but they live in what's called a parallel reality. The most dominant reptilians live in what's called a parallel reality. But I'm going to go into the history of the reptilians that came here to this earth. See, not all reptilians came to this earth. Not all reptilians did that. Some of your higher up, archaic type of really powerful reptilians never incarnate. They never incarnate, and they never take on an avatar. Very key here. Some reptilians can take on an avatar, or they can incarnate. When they take on an avatar, they have to connect their mind with the particular avatar's mind, just like in the movie Avatar, so that they can control them. And you have reptilians that do this so that they can get things from this reality to take back to their reality. So that's basically dealing with a reptilian that takes on an avatar. That's one type of reptilian. Then you have another type that never incarnates, never takes on an avatar. Then you have another type of reptilian that literally incarnates and becomes what some people would call a shapeshifter. They take on a human body, but they keep the consciousness of the reptilian, and they fuse this consciousness with a human body. So when you hear me talk about the reptilian shapeshifters, that's the type of reptilian that I'm dealing with in that particular instance. So the reptilians, they came here because this was a water dominant planet. This planet used to be called Moya, and as most people know, you need water for reptilians to be able to exist. And they exist in the most dominant alkaline waters. So they don't like just any kind of water. They like the most dominant alkaline water. So this is why they exist in the more depths of the seas. They exist in the crevices of the seas. And they came here to this planet a long time ago, and their crafts, they crashed down into the waters of this particular planet. Reptilian type of beings. Some of them were small, some of them were big. These were like reptilian species type of beings at the time that may have looked similar to humanoid looking, but definitely reptilian. What I mean by humanoid looking is that, yeah, you might have the posture of a human, you might stand upright and erect, but you still have the face of a reptile or a lizard or something like that. So this was the first type of beings that came to this planet. I personally, myself, from doing a lot of research, I found out that these particular beings, a lot of them started out like 3 feet tall, and a lot of them were really, really small, and they grew as they evolved or whatever. So like a lot of people, they like to talk about the reptilians being 7 feet and 8 feet and 12 feet and 20 feet. And I'm not saying they're not. What I'm saying is that the original reptilians that came to this planet, from my research, were very small. See, they sent the smallers. Like when you start getting into taller beings are not dominant in this reality. In this reality, believe it or not, the smaller beings dominate on the Earth type of reality. And height is a form of a defect, believe it or not. But when you deal with it from on the ET level or from different star constellations, height becomes more of a dominant trait on different planets. So this is why you have like a conflict when it comes to height, whereas you have some beings that are really tall, some beings that are really short, because some tribes would mix in with the tall ETs and the tall reptilians. And this is where they got their height from, because again, height was a staple amongst the Nephilim. It was something that the Nephilim definitely prided themselves in. Is like, as far as like, the taller you were, the more conscious you were, even, because you were able to exist on different realities or whatever. So height is very interesting, the whole topic of height and how it got to this planet. But the original reptilians that came to this planet were very small, and they crashed down into the waters, and they lived in the waters. And over time, they did certain experiments to get to this point, because it wasn't just evolution that got them to this point. They were able to create a reptilian type of being that was more of an amphibian type of a being. And this type of being was able to live on water and land, was able to spend time on land for periods of time and then come back into the waters or whatever. So these particular reptilians, they did a lot of breeding, a lot of mixing, and it created a lot of different types of species here on this planet. They were not responsible for creating the modern day human, even though the modern day human does have reptilian in them, which I'll try to get in touch on later on. But these reptilians they were not responsible for creating the modern day human. They were not responsible for that. This is when you get into the concept of the Anunnaki and these beings that came down and took on and basically partook in certain experiments so that they can create this worker that was made from more of an ape. See, these reptilians didn't have any mammal in them at this time. They were amphibians, and they lived in the waters, and then they could spend a little bit of time on land, but they didn't come out when the sun was out. They couldn't work the lands or whatever. And this is what I'm pointing out here. When the reptilians first got here, this is pre the Anunnaki story. This is before the Anunnaki came here. The reptilians been coming to this planet, and that's why I have to talk about this, because the reptilians are your original gods of this planet. The Dogon, some of the best astrologers out there. The Dogon mapped Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus before we had any telescopes. They learned from the reptilians, and they made no bones about it. They drew the pictures of the beings and how they looked, and they let you know that they learned all their information. The tribe of the Dogons learned their information from a higher group of beings. Sometimes they called them the elders. They called them different names, but at the end of the day, the Dogon and the Danakil tribe and these different tribes in West Africa all say that a higher group of beings came down to teach them. Even Cradle Mutwa talks about how the reptilians are the dominant beings, or the dominant race of beings on this planet. But that's changing. That's changing. I'm going to go more into that before I shut this video down. So the reptilians are very interesting and very key when you talk about the evolution of humans and how we got to this point, because they were here first. So they were breeding in and mixing in with different species of humans and partaking in different experiments even before the Anunnaki came here. What I mean by different species of humans, I mean they were fusing together and taking and abducting apes and taking the blood of an ape and mixing it and trying to figure out how they can create a scout or a species or a group of people that can go on the surface of the planet Earth, and a group of people that can, work the mines and do stuff like that. But it wasn't until the Anunnaki came down that the race of being humans were mastered. See, we have different prototypes of humans. There's many different types of humans that have been on this planet. There's many different species that have been behind trying to clone this perfect atom or this perfect worker. So what I'm pointing out here is that even before the Anunnaki came, you had the reptilians teaching different tribes of primitive type of humans, or what you would call like a Homo erectus type of human. You had the reptilians that would work with the Homo erectus. Even though the Homo erectus couldn't barely speak, they taught them through symbols and pictures. So this is where our writing system came from, because the reptilians had to teach them on the level that they were at. So I'm gonna get more into that, but let me go back into the history of the reptilians now. Now, to really understand, I guess, who or how to really classify these reptilians in our society, you have to first understand how they operate. And the reptilians, they operate and they create virtual realities. Very important here. So in order for them to rule and control, they have to create a virtual or synthetic reality to where you will never see a reptilian. You see, it's all, a lot of teachers talk about the Illuminati and stuff like that. But I know for sure Jordan Maxwell is very key when he talks about, he's very significant and key when he talks about the fact that the Illuminati cannot be known. See, I agree with him on that, and they cannot be seen because the beings that are manipulating and controlling your reality do it in a different reality. Think about it. Why would they live in this reality and control you? That means they're inferior. If they're living here Like someone that controls you doesn't live in the house with you. A real controller and a real ruler does it from another place, from another state, from another location. And it's the same thing. They don't live in this dimension, in this density to control us. They do it from a different density. You don't control the figure in the video game in this reality. You do it in 2D. You do it on the video game. You do it on a computer. So it's the same thing with the reptilians. They control this reality from a different dimension. You see, like we control computers, or we think we do. Or we control the images on computers, but the images on computers and video games and stuff like that are 2D. So we're 3D beings controlling a 2D creation. And it's the same thing with reptilians. Reptilians exist on 4, 5, and 6D, and they create virtual realities, and they use their mind, and they use deep mental sciences. I'm talking about deep mental sciences to control things. And they are masters at sexual energy. It's one of the greatest forces, energy that they use to control people, because of the fact that sex is a part of our habitual nature. I'm going to go into get my notes, because I want to go into some of the components that they use to control this reality. And I'm going to get more in depth, because it's really deeper than sex. They use 6 components to control this reality. And it's based upon tapping into a certain part of your brain. Some scientists have studied the brain, and they name a certain part of the brain after reptilians. They call it the reptilian complex, certain scientists. Now, modern scientists, they call this particular part of the brain the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia, BASAL ganglia. But you have another group of scientists that are a little bit more radical. You know me, I like the radical scientists. They call it the reptilian complex, or what's called the R factor. And David Icke talks about this too, and he does a really good job when he deals with the reptilian agenda. And these beings, they tap into the reptilian part of your brain. That's right, you have a reptilian aspect of your brain. It's called the basal ganglia. And this is the most primitive and oldest part of your brain, which proves that at one point you are a reptilian. You're more than that now, but you had the intelligence at one point of a reptilian, because this is the most primitive aspect of the brain. And they use 6 components that tap into this part of the brain to control this society. One of them is aggression. Aggression is something that is promoted in this society. See, passivity isn't promoted. Aggression is promoted. Because when you aggress, you give out your energy. You lose energy. If I aggress upon you, that means that it takes energy for me to aggress upon you. And I'm losing energy. So everybody knows that deals with martial arts, the greatest offense is defense. And they teach in this society the exact opposite. They teach you to be offensive. You gotta be aggressive. You gotta be a go-getter. You gotta get what you want. See, this is a part of the agenda. This is how they rule. Without being here, I'm gonna explain it to you. They use forces, emotional forces. They use energy and motion. And aggression takes anger. It takes a lot of compassion. It takes a lot of ambition to become aggressive. And these are emotions that they use. They use dominance. They teach in a society that we are to dominate. And they really don't tell you what to dominate over. See, that's the catch to it. They say, you're to dominate. You're to be a domineering person. And they teach the woman and the man this. And they don't give you anything to really dominate, or teach you what exactly you should dominate. So you translate that into coming home and trying to dominate your woman. And it's not wrong with dominating a woman like in a sexual way, or in a passionate way. But what I mean by dominating your woman is that you try to control her and her boundaries and where she goes and how long she stays there. This comes from the reptilian mind that they infused in you without being there, keep in mind. Not even being there. So they use dominance. They teach the woman the same thing. They teach her to be dominant now, the new woman, the dominatrix. You know what I'm saying? They have these different sexual episodes, different pornography films where, they show the woman dominating and stuff like that. So now the woman, wants to step out of her character, and she's becoming more domineering. She's an independent woman. She's dominant now. And I'm not a sexist. I'm not saying women shouldn't be independent, but I'm explaining to you a mind and something, that a seed or energy or an emotion that's planted in you, and it turns into a monster. turns into a reptile actually. And the next energy that they use to control is territoriality, to be territorial. This is mine. This is my book. We all do it. I'm guilty of it too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking to myself. This is my VCR, or I know that's old school. Or this is my DVD player. This is my laptop. Mine, mine, mine. And then they teach you to want more and more and more. So now you're to the point you don't want to just dominate your stuff. You even dominate the stuff that you get for your children. And you regulate when they should do this and when they should do that, or you regulate or you dominate. And it's your right to dominate your children. So I mean, I know that's kind of a bad example, but you know where I'm getting at. Like, you're using the whole spirit of domination and territoriality. Excuse me, I'm not just talking about domination, but being territorial. We take that too far. We can't live in a house with our family members anymore because everybody got to have their own house. Meanwhile, the Mexicans are very good at living together. And you wonder why the Mexican is now making more money than the so-called African American, because they're willing to share their territory. You see, they're not caught up on that reptilian agenda. They're breaking free from that. They're not on the territorial gang. But in the meantime, we have Americans, black and white alike, that, you know, we need all of this space. We don't like to share. We got to have all of this stuff for us. And I know we all need our space and our breathing room, but when you overdo it, you get to a point where you're too territorial. It's not constructive at all. And keep in mind that the reptilians, though they use these forces, they don't live like that. They don't live like that. And I'm going to explain to you how they live. Yeah, they're aggressive. Yeah, they like to dominate. Yeah, they're territorial. But you know the difference between the reptilians and us humans is the fact that they respect hierarchy. See, that's something they're willing to submit. Though they have these strong traits, when it comes time to submit to a structure, and when it comes time for a higher agenda, they submit. Even if they don't agree, they submit. And this is why you see some reptiles, they say reptiles are always looking up, because it's in their nature to look up and to submit. So though they're aggressive and dominate, they have a submitting nature, and they submit to structure and hierarchy. They're very ritualistic, which is the next force that they use to control. They use the force of ritual to control you. Ritual. Reptilians are very ritualistic in their civilization. They have rituals. Even when you study the reptile from a natural standpoint, like the reptile in nature, they're very ritualistic. They do things in a certain fashion. And this is where habits come from. Habits come from ritual. So the reptilians, they rule you because of the fact that they know ritual and they know when to do a thing. See, they invented astrology. They taught the Dogons astrology. They've been knowing about the sun moving through different constellations and it regulating your affairs long before we came here. So this is studying ritual and ritual display. So when you talk about sacrifice, reptilians, they came up with sacrifice because this is what they do. They're very ritualistic. They don't just eat meat. They sacrifice their meat. That's the difference. See, most people out here, they just eat meat. You just go eat your meat. You know, you go to McDonald's, Burger King, whatever. I don't respect a meat eater like that, because a true meat eater is going to sacrifice their meat. They're going to do it in a ritualistic fashion. And this is what reptilians do, because they know of the energy that they can get from this. And all reptilians are not meat eaters all the time. We have a lot of reptilians that are vegetarians. Definitely something I want to point out. And the last thing they use to rule, which kind of links into ritual, is they use habits. Habits. See, that part of the brain is responsible for your habits or your routine. A habit is just something that you program your subconscious mind to get into the routine of doing. And the reptilians, they rule you through your habits. So you notice they don't use a lot of high concepts to rule, like the way most people think. They use your very nature, the stuff that's in your very nature, like to be aggressive. It's in your nature to be aggressive, but they don't teach you how to be skillful with it. See, what they do is that they put situations in our society and put you in different situations so that they will bring out these attributes in you unskillfully and negatively. Very important that I point this out here. They want to bring these attributes out of you from a negative light, from a negative perspective. They don't want to do it. It's not to use your aggression for good, because there's nothing wrong with being aggressive. It's not to use your dominance for good. It's to use your dominance to make you think you're an island in and of yourself, that you're dominating something, but then you separate from your family. You're not taking care of your children. You don't have a wife. You don't care to have a wife. You're just dominating your house. You're a single bachelor. You're dominating everything. Or you're a single woman. And you got your kids, but you don't have no desire to get with the child's father because you want your career and you want to dominate. See, they teach you how to use these attributes unskillfully. That's the problem. It's not the attributes itself. So I'm not pointing out this stuff about reptilians and all of this and from a right and wrong perspective. And that's why I opened up the video talking like that. This is to help you to understand how they roll, because everybody wants to know. Like, people have been sending me a lot of emails. Who are these reptilians? How do they do it? I want to know exactly who they are. I'm showing you. So they use all these forces through your brain, and they create an environment that will keep this going. So they create jobs that keep you aggressive. See what I'm saying? They create television shows that keep the aggressive gene active. You see, they use sex. Everything on television is based and centered around sex. Everything is centered around sex because they need the sexual force to control. This is what they need. So this is how the reptilians do it. This is how you can kind of like point out as to whether or not somebody's up under control by reptilians, is how much of these attributes do they unskillfully display. Like, how aggressive is this person? Is this person unrealistically aggressive? How domineering is this person? Is this person unrealistically domineering? See, this is the type of attribute, this is the type of stuff you want to look for. First thing you want to look for if you're talking about identifying as to whether or not somebody's up under control of the reptilians, is these different attributes. Now, I'm going to get into a deeper aspect of it, and I'm going to talk about people that have blood links to reptilians. People that have blood links to reptilians. Now, when you study blood, and I'm going to do a video on blood, going more in depth, because my time is really limited here. You have the Rh negative blood, and then you have the Rh positive blood. And most people, the writers and researchers, they talk about how the beings from the Draconian star constellation have the Rh negative blood, or the O negative blood. And this is very important here. And they talk about how people that have this O negative blood have a direct link to reptilians. And when you get into researching the Rh negative blood, you're going to find out that this is a very superior blood type. People with this particular blood cannot even take donations of blood from other beings. They can only take that particular blood, period, even though they can give out blood to all the other beings. Very interesting. And it's because of, I think it's called the antigens that are in this particular blood. You have monkey components, or monkey blood, basically is what Rh positive blood is. So 97%, or I think it's like 90% of the population has Rh positive blood. And then you have a small percentage of 10% of the human population that has this Rh negative blood, and this dominant blood type that's based on alkalinity, believe it or not. It's based on how alkaline your blood is or isn't. The reptilian blood is very alkaline because of the fact that in the history, when you study bloodlines, you're studying history. So in the history of the old bloodline, that goes back to when the reptilians crashed down into the waters. These particular beings had O negative blood type. So people that have this type of blood type could be related to reptilians, or from some of the same star constellations that reptilians come from. People that don't have this type of blood type have more of the monkey trait in them. And people, see, this is what they don't talk about when they talk about the blood types, is it goes back to how much monkey you do or don't have in you. And that's what really determines your blood type. And your blood type is different from your parents. You can have a different blood type from your parents. And this is because your blood type goes into past life karma. This is the link that you have with a particular star group. So those people that are O negative have a link to reptilians from, you don't know which star group, but you definitely have a link to reptilians. Something very important that I want to point out here. So blood is karma, beloved. Like, when you start talking about the blood that you have, because the blood that you have is responsible for how your diet should be. I mean, don't sleep on blood. It's a really good book called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And I don't recommend everything that they talk about in that book, but some of the stuff is very key, like especially when you look at the O negative blood type. And they talk about how people that have this O negative blood type they have to take in more alkaline foods, and they have more food allergies. they have to eat a lot more natural, and most of the times they don't know that. So people that have O negative blood type, these are your types that get sick from eating certain foods that some people can just pig out on. This is the reason why some people can pig out on certain meats and foods and not really feel any negative effects from it, whereas you have somebody with the O negative blood type and they're like breaking out in hives and itching and throat mucus and everything just from eating a basic candy bar or something like that. And this is because of the fact that they have this superior blood in them, and you're not nurturing your blood. You have to eat alkaline foods when you have this O negative blood type. You really have to eat alkaline foods in general. I mean, that's just really anybody, because when you start studying the blood is better as being alkaline. It's better being alkaline because of the fact that when something is alkaline, it means that it's more calm, it's more cool. When something is acidic, it means it's more hot, it's more electric, it's more fiery. So people that eat more acidic foods have a short temper. They're impatient. People that eat alkaline foods and have alkaline blood, not just eat alkaline foods, but have turned their blood into more of alkaline, more calm, more patient. They're in tune with their spiritual powers a lot more. So when you start talking about like why rituals work for certain people and why they don't, this goes into the blood type, into your link that you possibly have with different beings, and those particular people that have this Rh negative or this O negative blood type have an ability to partake in rituals and have success in it more so than people that don't in the beginning. Now, I'm not saying people that have Rh positive cannot have success in ritual, because that's not true at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that people with the Rh negative have more of a karma and a history of partaking in rituals, because at one point you were a part of that ritual, that reptilian ritual that I talked about. That's in your blood, so you know about rituals. You know that, okay, if I do this every day at a certain time, this is going to help to create a certain type of karma for me. So really, like, what I'm saying here is, like, when you start studying the reptilians, you're really getting into studying yourself. Like, all humans have a certain amount of reptilian traits in them, but people with the Rh negative blood, most of the time, they're dominated by their reptilian traits. They're dominated by that. So they have to, like, when you talk about reptilian traits, these are like kind of like some of the same traits that they say people that are kind of like vampires have. And they talk about how vampires need energy to live, and they need to feed off of other people's energy or whatever. And this is because of the fact that this is the same trait that reptilians have. And the reason for this is because of the fact that at one point reptilians were used to living in a community. See, remember I talked about them being aggressive, dominant, and territorial, but up under the guidance and the jurisdiction of a community. So they were used to depending on each other for energy and to make it. You know what I'm saying? And then you get into this society to where it's like a dog eat dog world, and then you have, you know what I'm saying, it's basically like wrong for you to depend on somebody for something, or to ask somebody for something or something like that. So then this is where you get the concept of energy vampires from, or people that need people to exist, or people that take people's energy or whatever to exist. The whole concept of that comes from just a certain type of being that's out of his or her environment. You see, and this is why you should know your blood type. And this is why people that have the same blood types resonate with each other. You should definitely know your blood type and know as to whether or not you're positive or you're negative. Very key here. So understanding the concept of the reptilians is understanding blood. You got to understand brain functionality, and you have to understand how all of this is working in your own internal being, so that you can take charge of your life and take back charge of your life from these forces of these reptilians that are ruling over you from another dimension through your own computer, through your own brain, through your own bloodline, things of that nature. Now, if you do have a reptilian bloodline, some people do have and their bloodline goes back to the reptilians. It's not bad. I'm not here to knock you. I'm not here to knock anybody that has any type of blood in it. I'm here to show you how you're supposed to live. See, this is what they don't teach or whatever. We all have to be equal. And the only way for us to be equal is that every being has to know how to live. So I'm here to show you how to live based upon if you have this O negative blood type, you're more so linked to the reptilians, or if you have more of the monkey blood in you, you're more so linked to the Homo sapiens or humans. See, people that fit into the matrix, people that fit into the society, or they feel like they're a part of human society, it's in their blood. There's a reason why they feel like that. People that don't fit in and feel like, oh, I don't fit into society of humans, I don't like humans, and all of that type of stuff, It's a reason why you feel like that. It's because of your blood. And what happens is that society needs to embrace this so that we can begin to create communities specifically for people that function a certain way. This is why we had tribes in the beginning. Like, people never, you ever asked yourself, why do we have tribes anyway? Like, why do we have to separate into different tribes and stuff? And it's because of the fact that you need tribalism so that you can learn about the type of being that you are. And then from there, we would have nations. The tribe fell up under nations. And then up under the nation is when we all become equal. We become equal up under the banner of a nation. But within the tribes, this is how we separate and differentiate ourselves into different tribes. So what I come to find out is that even your zodiac sign links into your bloodline. You ask for your bloodline. You ask for your karma. Like, if you link to certain beings or whatever, and you have certain tendencies, like you're more aggressive, you're more domineering, but then you respect structure more. You link to a certain type of being because of this. So what I'm saying here is that don't look at the reptilians like they're bad. Look at the reptilians like they're evil because they have a certain nature. It's just that the reptilians had a certain nature, and they created a reality based upon their nature so that they can keep their world going. That's all that happened. Now, there's new beings coming to this planet that are not of the reptilian stock. And these new beings, they more so tap into the neocortex aspect of our brain. And this is the more conscious aspect of our brain. Because the aspect of our brain that the reptilians tap into, this is more of the subconscious. See, this is why the reptilians game is so successful, is because they program themselves into your subconscious. The part of you that you don't even think about. See, like, you have habits that you don't realize you have. Like, some people twitch their eyes or twitch their thumbs, or, you know what I'm saying, or do certain movements and you don't even realize you're doing it. This is the part of the brain that the reptilians function up under, the habitual aspect of your brain. And they program themselves into that. And these higher beings that are trying to help us, they can only help us through the conscious aspect of our brain. And this is why we talk about people becoming conscious or cognizant. See, it's a difference between being cognizant and functioning from the cognizant conscious realm and functioning from the subconscious realm, or the realm of the involuntary tendencies. And the reptilians, they program themselves into that part. So if you want help from the higher beings and the beings that are really kind of concerned with humans getting their freedom and freeing themselves from the control grid of these particular reptilians, you have to become more conscious. That's the main thing. Like, you have to become more conscious, more aware of the things you say, the things you do. Because, like, most of us aren't even really conscious of the things we say. We're not even conscious of, I was reading this article today, like, most of us not even conscious about how many times we lie. In this particular article, they were saying the average human lies over 200 times a day. Beloved, don't you know metaphysically, when you lie, you create a negative program and a negative software into your being by telling that lie? Even if it's like a lie, like a white lie. Because you have to remember your lies. You have to think about them. And it takes more hormones to lie than it does to tell the truth. So you have to, like, remember your lies and keep them in place, like, and create a fake reality for lies. Whereas with the truth is in your DNA. You don't have to you recall the truth. You remember the truth, but it's already implanted in you. It's not based upon a virtual reality or a fake program that's running on you. A lie is a fake program. So you have people that are lying. People that don't, you know what I'm saying? People that don't want to tell the truth. And this is messing up your brain. You can't free yourself from the control grid of reptilians when you go outside and a person asks you how you feel today, and you know you feel like shit. And you say, I feel good. You know you feel like shit. That's a lie. You're lying to yourself. And that's creating a false reality for you. So you start talking about freeing yourself from these beings. It's really like a lot of internal work that you have to do. According to a lot of the masters, like the metaphysical masters, they've already killed a lot of reptilians and eliminated a lot of the reptilian species from this planet, believe it or not. So it's not as much reptilian control on this planet as it used to be. And the reptilian control that is present on this planet is more so coming from programs that are still running. You see, like, it's not really beings really that are still sitting in the seats and controlling humans as much as they used to. Because based upon the Galactic Federation, some things have happened with the Galactic Federation and with the shift to where a lot of the reptilians are being killed and murdered and basically driven away from this planet. A lot of that reptilian type of mentality is gone, but the thing is that the programs are still running. And this is the part, you know, like that we got to free ourselves from. And this is the spell that we must undo or untie or uncross. It's a spell and a war for our minds. So I hope this helped to give you a brief understanding of what I mean by the reptilian shapeshifters, reptilians, controlling your reality, and just the whole concept of reptilians, period. The different species of reptilians. There's different species of reptilians. I want to kind of point that out too. Like I said, you have the small ones, and then you have the tall ones. You have reptilians that are more green. You have reptilians that look more like black. You have reptilians that look more albino. So you have different species of reptilians too. So the reptilian thing is pretty deep. I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down because my time is very limited. I thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for watching. Until my next video, I'll leave you all in peace.